Welcome to another season, another episode of Bad Girl Gone Good podcast. It's 2026. We got a new setup, new material, same vibe, same truth. Welcome again. I'm so glad you're tapping in with me this season. We are gearing towards some different kind of content, but before we get there, let's take a little recap of what last season brought us. Okay, last season was so good. I had some great guests on the show. I brought on some good friends. There were some great professionals. So, first, we talked about, of course, family, health, wellness. We talked about the community, a lot of the disparities that we experience within our communities. And we touched on some possibilities of solutions, right? So on that episode, I brought on my good girlfriend. Her name is Heim. We've been locked in for umpteen years. We went to nursing school together. And she just, on that specific episode, brought on the energy of, college for me. She brought on the energy of combining with my people, having a good time, but also gearing our energy towards how we can help fix our communities. She was one of those people in college who helped me to hone in on my nursing skills. She was my ace. She was my gang. So that was the episode where we just talked about how to bring our nursing professionalism and the things that we do behind the scenes in healthcare to the streets, right? On the flip side, my followers had a favorite episode. When I did my recap of last season, I saw how much the people enjoyed the episode with Chef Nye and I. Chef Nye is a vegan chef who owns Green Bites here in the Chicagoland area, the home of Lerald's. And we get down to the bottom of how hard it was for us as women who were awakening, tapping into our strengths, and changing with the dynamics of truth, right? We talked about how hard it was for us to, just be comfortable with our mindset shifts and how that affected us as parents and how we gave life to our children, right? So a lot of people enjoyed us talk about the transition from how we were in healthcare and how we saw healthcare versus how we lived our everyday lives. So those were some fire episodes. If you want to check that out, go to the YouTube, Bad Girl Gone Good podcast. That's something that you will want to go back and watch them couple of episodes, them few episodes. And we just did the thing. Um, that was the gist of last season: health, wellness, change, mindset, and all those things. I actually introduced people to myself. I introduced people to my vibe, my energy, my professionalism, my knowledge, my wisdom, how I see things, and how I break big things, ideals, um, how I break those things down and see it from a perspective of through the spiritual lens, through the energetic lens, because that's what I teach people. Before there is anything physical, there's energy. Before there's the seen, there's the unseen, right? So I ease people in to how I view things and how knowledge and wisdom will be unfolding moving forward, how we evolve into our newness and teach our children moving forward. You know, a lot of the times during those episodes, I although I eased you guys in, I did a lot of explaining. I explained a lot. I probably wasn't as comfortable with my perspective and my viewpoint as I am now. So 2026, Bad Girl Going Good podcast. I'm not doing a lot of explaining. Just come along for the ride, okay? And we gonna have a good time. All right, so one of the reasons why I'm not doing a lot of explaining is because it's hard for me to put the dynamics of myself, black women like me, in a box. Like I said, I've been a licensed cosmetologist for forever since I was 17 years old, right? I went to Chicago State University where I obtained my bachelor's degree in science of nursing. I've been a nurse since 2016. I've been practicing behavioral and mental health nursing for the past 10 years. And in my tenure, I've seen so much, all different walks of life, all different ways that people practice their reality and their spirituality, which has helped me shape my reality and how I want to present myself into the world, right? So like I said previously, we touched on some ways that we can solve some of the disparities, right? We just talked about it. We threw some things up in the air last season. But this season, I would like for my followers, my supporters, the new people to Bad Girl Gone Good podcast, to tap into the action. So what I created the Spiritual Wellness Initiative. That is a non-for-profit organization where we help the spirit of things in all aspects of community, right? So, one thing I like for people to understand is that when people have mental or behavioral health issues, it's a spiritual one. When people, encounter situations where they experience trauma, it has a profound effect on a part of the brain that's called the amygdala. The amygdala houses just energy. It's like a ever revolving cycle of energy where memories are created. And when a person experiences trauma or drama, it has a effect on your energy, your spirit, right? And so before there's ever a sickness, a complete injury, there's like a blow. So people have to understand the foundation of wellness is the sickness, but it has underlying issues, right? So oftentimes in my line of work, while I'm dealing with psychotic patients or people with behavioral health issues, that's inside or on the outside of the hospital. We know that those people can come in our family, our friends, that can show up in many different kinds of ways, right? I'm always digging to the root of the problem. It's easy for me to see. It's easy for me to highlight. It's easy for me to explain, which allows people a easier way to deal with those deep rooted issues that cause the pain in the first place, right? So I've been seeing that my work has been more beneficial on the outside in the streets where I can have more contact. So that is why we're bringing our healing work, our healing journeys to communicate through Bad Girl Gone Good podcast because it's very important. You know how they say you can't turn a bad girl good and all of that. I just don't like the cliches because that's just not the truth of the matter. We all have those sides in us. We all have the good side, the bad side, the great side, the ugly side. But it's important for people to tap into who they truly are, and that's through knowledge of self, of course. So you could find a balance. You could walk your path. So you could be your best self. That's very important. We're not trying to look to the side, to the left, to the right. You can't be your best self. You'll be imbalanced, right? So the goal for anybody on this planet that's seeing me, that's hearing me, is to make sure that you are able to understand yourself. That means your dark side, but also highlight your light side. And so you can find your middle ground so you can be your best self. All right. So that's what we on this season. It's important for us to know that our reach and the way that we communicate with people is not just the old rigmarole of the relationships and we hate this and bash this, that, and we passed that specifically because I'm gonna say this, I'm a trailblazer. So I've been through, seen enough where I could see both sides of many different situations. And the goal is to heal it. I'm sure people tired of talking about a lot of stuff that's going on and how the dating pools got pissed in it and all of that. It's like, but what's inside of you? What is it that's in you that's contributing to the piss in the dating pools? Let's get there. And, we don't hold each other, we don't nail each other to the cross. But what we do is we hold each other accountable. We hold ourselves accountable so you can find a medium to change. Other than that, there's nothing that you can do to contribute to the change if you're not changing yourself. You got to start with the man in the mirror. All right. And that's just what it is. So, me, myself, I'm sovereign. I have my own thought processes through my experiences, my foundation, and all of that. So, I don't fit into a box. I advise you to not try to fit into a box neither. The world is too big to put yourself in a box. There's no fun in boxes. Okay. I don't like boxes. All right. So, when we're talking about community and being in society, because we got this thing, people antisocial. But what is it to be social? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it to be a good social pillar, right? What is it to be a person that one of your gang in your community or people in your community that love you can call you and pick up the phone and rely on you to do whatever it is that you bring to the table of society? And you should do it good. Think about what you do, hone in on it, and do it well. All right, because that's what we need moving forward. We don't need no half-ass and we don't need no if this, that. It takes time to develop, but just know that we're looking for the greatness to sit at the tables that me and my friends sitting at, okay? Because when we call each other, we know stuff gonna get done, all right? And that's the gist of having a functional society. So let's jump into society, the word society, and what it means to be that, right? So there are 4 pillars, right? I'm sure some of you people heard of this specific framework that I'm about to go into. You got the thinkers, the creators, the doers, the deciders, right? So for me personally, like I said, I don't fit into a box. So I see myself blurring all of those lines. I'm a thinker. I'm a think for myself. I might throw out something for my counterparts to eat up so they could pull out some thoughts, be some thinkers for themselves. I'm definitely a creator. That's just comes natural to me. That's my hobby. I like to create different things, whatever gets me going at that time. If I see it, if I see a problem, I'm gonna create a solution. And oftentimes it's a great solution. Sometimes it done been came up with, sometimes it ain't been flushed out, but that's a foundation of my contribution is being a creator. All right. We have the doers. I'm definitely a doer. I'm gonna get it done. I mess with the doers. And then we have the deciders. Before we get to the doing, we have to make decisions. And oftentimes it's not easy to make decisions because people have so many different choices these days. You scroll on this, you scroll on that, you got so many choices. When I'm talking about friendships, jobs, relationships, hair, speaking of hair, love is in the hair. I stay on the hair. That's just one of my things. I'ma think it, I'ma create it, I'ma do it. And that's just what it is. But back to the decision making process. It's not easy to make decisions. You could choose, but to decide is to have a thought going with that one and denouncing anything else. That's what making a decision is. And it's important to be able to decide things because you have the decision making matrix where people make decisions and they don't factor in all of the details that will provide them with a clear picture of the outcome that they are gearing towards, right? So it's important to factor in the decision making matrix, the if then, this, that, make your decisions and then do it. Get some stuff done. That's what I challenge everybody today in 2026 on this episode of Bad Girl Gone Good. Make some good decisions for yourself this year and get them done. Create the solutions to your own problems. And through your own experiences, think with your own thoughts. I tell people all the time, well, let me say this before I get there. You know, I used to hang with a whole lot of people. I'm attractive. So I had a lot of quote unquote friends, acquaintances. I went here and there, right? So I found myself in large crowds and large groups oftentimes. But I was still a loner at heart because I'm an observer. I like to experience things on my own. Um, I can get with my crowd, but I like to be around like-minded people because the people who think like me, they think their own thoughts. Not that I'm so stubborn and bullheaded where I can't pick up what's being put down, but I like to think for myself. Present it to me, allow me to digest it, and I'm gonna do what I will with it. And I do the same thing for my counterparts, for my people. You know what I'm saying? I don't never want to flush nothing down your throat. That's no fun. That's control. And we past that. We into sovereignty, making our own decisions, exercising our free will, and that's in everything. Jobs, parenting, relationships, friendships, family ships. All right? Because that's so important. Especially family. Because when you get to family, the word family and the dynamic and the ideals of family, people want to store love there. They want to store comfortability in that family ship, in that family dynamic. But what I've grown to see and understand through my experiences and through taking care of a lot of people who've experienced life through their own lenses is that families these days have been kind of the ideal of it. It has not lived up to what it is supposed to be, which has produced a lot of what we see in today's society, right? A lot of disloyal relationships because people aren't loyal to themselves because the first unit that they experience disloyalty with is the people that they love the most. And so that's why they adapt to those back and forth behaviors of, betraying themselves and easily betraying others because that's what they're used to. So I wanted to just tap in real quick about family and the point of it, right? They're supposed to function. We hear functional families, dysfunctional families. What does that mean? I- When I'm doing my research and I'm teaching and I'm learning first, and then I'm teaching, I don't just look up the definition, right? I'm a etymologist. That is a tongue twister. Etymology type of girl. I always look up the roots of it as far as where the origin of the word came from. So I'm gonna give you a little brief understanding of what I've came to know. All right. So function. It comes from the Latin language of fungi, which means to perform. So when you're talking about a functional family or a dysfunctional family, that goes into how is the family performing? What is it producing? Is it producing people who are well-rounded, who can adapt, who are emotionally intelligent, who have enough grit within themselves to be self-sufficient, independent, self-starters, right? People who have self-esteem and who are not looking to be validated on the outside. These are all principles that have to be taught to children so they can have a knowledge of self. How are the families performing with one another? That'll If you can just take that real quick, take a quick inventory of what you got going on, you'll see how your family is performing. But we don't stop there. We don't like to point the blame. It's no fun. The fun is the solutions. What can you do about the way that your family is performing in the world, in society, in front of the eyes of God, right? You can't change everybody that you consider family. You can only do what you called to do. If you're a mom, you got kids, right? If you're a dad, you got kids. If you a wife or a husband, you got duty, right? And that's when them oaths and those duties and responsibilities come really into play to see if you really about that life where you can take your will and change the dynamics of what's going on around you without force, but with evolution, which I'm getting into next, right? Within the confines of allowing people around you to exercise their free will. Because control ain't love, you know? Presentation, teaching, learning, that's love. And the next part of the family dynamic, which I already touched on, is evolution. So, evolution is a Latin word as well, and it means the unfolding, the willing. Like, if you think about circular movements of the flowers, right? That's what the flower of life is. When you start from the inside and it gets bigger and bigger on the outside as it expands. So those are the functions or the dynamics rather of family, is to function and evolve. And I touch on that because a lot of us are born into systems, family dynamics where, when we were younger, we thought we knew everything. The world was big and bright, but it was this big. You know what I mean? As far as what our energy touched on. And as life happened, and we were supposed to learn from all those crazy experiences that we experienced as we were coming up, your understanding and your mind and your action and your thoughts should expand. And the lessons that you learn should be integrated into your everyday life so you can evolve your family unit. Why is that hard? Chef Nye and I talked about that last season when we were talking about changing our diets and how hard it is to get the people that you love on one accord because you love them. I'm going to give you a real quick science lesson. All right. Bonds. We talk about bonds. Bonds hard to break. Why? In chemistry, the hardest bonds to break are covalent bonds. What is that? We're sharing the valence, which means the electrons. Those are negative charges. You could think about that in microscopic terms, or you could think about it in how we handle one another. Oftentimes, people bond over negativity. So for me, as a buffer, as a person who come through neutral, we could break up some negative bonds. And my goal is to get what my like. Because we hear all the time, opposites attract, but like attracts like as well. So this year, this season, our goals is to actively, in thought, consciously break negative bonds. Anything that's bringing you into gossip, that's bringing your mentality down, that's bringing you into a low state of thought, that's causing you to look at situations from a glass half empty perspective. Anything that's talking down on your money, all that old, if it ain't one thing, it's another. Leave that in the past. How can you evolve with greatness if you still talking like last year and last decade? That's no fun for people like me. Because like I said, I'm a trailblazer. I'm moving forward. We gotta move forward. We can't talk about what just happened. You know what I mean? We can if we gonna talk about the solution to the problem. But if we moving forward, we kind of already got that, in the groove of things. So like I said, moving forward, it's important to break those negative bonds so we can build the positive ones. And it's not easy to see them all the time, so you have to adjust your lens, right? Life is, and seeing life is like a camera, like you have to adjust your lens to be able to get into focus of really what you want, because it's so much that can contribute to your happiness or your misery if you allow it to be within the focus of your picture. All right. So, look, right now, I'm excited because my specific position is my contribution. I feel like I done been through a lot. I've learned a lot. And not only, and so I touched on my two professions that people know me the most, but I've been in financial services since 2018. That's gonna be a whole podcast episode because I got some people that's coming on that are going to help educate, us on the dynamics on both ends, providing those services and requiring those services. I come from a big old family. I can't tell you how many times people had to fry fish to bury people. All right. But at the same time, I was a person that kind of like try to bring people in on these conversations. And when I learned these things, I wanted everybody to know. And they're like, yeah, no, we're not there yet. So I had to deal with learning all of the new stuff that I was supposed to learn, but also respect the boundaries of the people who were around me without infringing on what they wanted to do, but also not being in a judgmental perspective because sometimes it takes time. Timing is everything. That's what a good friend told me kind of recently, and I stick with that. I totally wholeheartedly agree that when good things are supposed to happen, whether it's good or beneficial for you, or however you see it, it just take a little time for you to get in where you fit in. All right. So, like I said, financial services has been the bedrock of a lot of decisions that I've made ever since 2018 when I, had some light bulbs go off and people came around and educated me and I got introduced to a couple of things. Okay. So, like I said, I'm excited about my contribution to the public, which is connecting us on a way where we can tap in, whether it's beauty, luxury, change, mindset shifts, right? All of these different kinds of things, money, future, foundation, and strength and wisdom. Because without those things, I wouldn't have made it even here to today. You know what I mean? To deliver you this information. So for me, with me blurring the lines of all those four pillars, being a thinker, a creator, a doer, and a decider, I'm here to influence the next set of well rounded social individuals because we need more people who are comfortable with being outside the box, right? And that's what we taking it in 2026 for Bad Girl Gone Good podcast, okay? We got some stories for y'all. We got a couple of different things that we want to bring to the public and invite you guys into some of our spaces, right? So, like I said, we solution oriented. You need to hop online and Google Spiritual Wellness Initiative.org. That is our non for profit organization. Our first project that we spearheaded, started back in November, is our hair care program where we deliver hair care and beauty and wellness service and conversations to kids, women, children in underprivileged situations. Okay. So we're not done with that campaign. We are far from done with that campaign. It's not ending to the end of first quarter. And I dare you to go on there, surf the website, contribute to the organization, okay? And that was our first movement in being a solution to some of the problems that we talked about on the first season, okay? Because don't come around me with no problems if you don't want them solved, because that's just what we doing, okay? So I'm glad y'all tapped into this season. I'm excited. It's it's a thing where when you could bring out your creativity and your passions and bring it to the forefront where people can relate. That's just what it is. So I invite y'all to turn your notification bells on, like, share, follow us on all the platforms, and tap in with Bad Girl Gone Good podcast. Send me an email if you have some interest, if you want to talk about some things, if you think that you have some things to contribute to the show, which I've already got a couple of inquiries. I'm excited, you know? So again, it's your fave, Visionary A, with Bad Girl Gone Good podcast. It's 2026. We on one. Peace.